I welcome all for the Thursday Bhagavad Gita classes. So today we are starting our second chapter, and some of you have joined new today for the first time. So don't worry, even though you have missed the first chapter, I will conduct a special session for all of you, for all the new students. I have the list of all of you. Just I will try to give a brief intro about the first chapter, and before that, we will all start by reciting Mangalacharan, the prayers. So I think we should wait for another 3 minutes for others to join. At 6:05, we will start with the Mangalacharan prayers.
Mataji,
Yes,
someone's mic is on. That's why disturbance is coming, Mataji.
okay, somebody's mic is on. I request everybody to please kindly turn off the mics on your end.
Geeta Mataji. Geeta.
Yeah. Uh,
Mataji, Geeta's mic is on.
right. I got it. Yes, is that fine? Sindhuja, are you there?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, I have sent you the
Yeah, I've seen.
yes, the acronym, right?
Ma'am, the noise is still coming.
Yes, they're all hearing some noise from somewhere. Is anybody? Everybody is muted. I'll try to switch off the fan.
Now it's not there.
Vishnu, is this fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we will start. It's a new camera, and I think it's having a large scope. It covers a lot of background. It's a little different. Fine. So let us start the Mangalacharan prayers prayerfully as we are entering into the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which actually is the essence of the entire Gita. All the contents of Gita are summarized in this very chapter. Very important chapter. अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदा सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमामि विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
Ma'am, your voice is not audible.
Ma'am, your voice is
Disturbance
breaking
coming.
and disturbance is also coming. I think there is some problem in your mic.
Yes, Mataji, in your mic.
Is it? Just a second. There's a disturbance in my voice and my voice is breaking. Yeah. Haribol, how is it now? Still?
Still
Yes,
coming,
ma'am, it is
Mataji.
still disturbance is still coming.
Still disturbance. And so is there lots of disturbance? How about it now? Is it clear?
Ma'am, I
Clear,
prior
Mataji.
to
Okay.
Clear.
Yeah, it's clear?
Yes, Mataji, clear.
Yes, it's clear. Okay. Yeah, it's clear. I need time. Yeah. Okay. So it's 6:10 now. So we will end the class by 7:10. So as we are entering the second chapter, a quick recap of the first chapter. So the first chapter was about observing the armies. So the Pandavas and the Kauravas, they have gathered at the battlefield of Kurukshetra. There were two opposing armies. And the Kauravas had a lot of strength, but still Pandavas were at a, on the edge. They had the edge because Krishna was on their side. So we are trying to learn each chapter with the help of an acronym that makes memorizing the salient points of the chapter very easy. For example, for the first chapter, we had the acronym called DOUBT, DOUBT. The D stands for Dhritarashtra. So the whole chapter began with Dhritarashtra, who was in a lot of fear and anxiety as he was fearful because the battlefield of Kurukshetra was the place where dharma would be established, and he knew his sons were impious and that they would the battle would the place favors the Pandavas. So Dhritarashtra was in a lot of anxiety. Then we saw how Duryodhana was a very diplomatic person. He had a lot of managerial capabilities, but then in his equation he missed out the most important person, who is Krishna. And that's his the materialist folly we have seen. On the opposing side is we have seen Arjuna, how he was a staunch spiritualist, and his equation of taking shelter of Krishna has done him great good. In fact, the whole chapter is titled Arjuna Vishada Yoga, because we see here on one end Dhritarashtra was in crisis and Duryodhana was in crisis and Arjuna was also in crisis. But Arjuna, one sec. Ganga Mataji, can you please mute yourself? I request everybody to please.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I request everybody to kindly mute yourself. Yeah. So Vishada Yoga, because everybody was going through a lot of crisis, but so is it with Arjuna. Am I audible to all of you? Hmm? Yes, is everybody there, right? Yeah. Okay, there was sudden power cut. So it was called Arjuna Vishada Yoga because in his lamentation and in his crisis, he approached Krishna. That's the reason it became a yoga. Yoga itself, the word means to connect yourself to the higher power. So, and we saw how ominous result, how already the victory is anticipated, and it was ominous because there were a lot of signs of victory. Like Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas, there was Kapidvaja, then Arjuna had a lot of chariots on all weapons, which were like which never faced defeat. So already victory is decided. It's going to be on the Pandavas side. Then uncertainty. There was a phase of uncertainty that Arjuna was facing through. And B stood for bewilderment. We saw how Arjuna was bewildered after asking Krishna to stop the chariot in between the two fields, two armies. And then T, the turning point. And Arjuna gave a lot of explanations, a lot of 5 major reasons why he declined to fight. So after all the preparations for the war, so after Arjuna saw the entire army on both sides, he declined to fight. So this was about the first chapter. So now the second chapter acronym is Gita. So we will be doing our second chapter in 4 sessions. Actually, second chapter is a very big chapter. It has 72 verses, but still let's try to complete it. Gita, please note down, all of you, if you have your pen and paper. G stands for Guru. So verses 1 to 10 speak about the subject matter of Guru, the importance of Guru in one's life. I stands for identity. Verses 11 to 30 speak about identity. That's basically Atma Tattva, which we will be doing in the next session. T stands for two duties. That's from verses 31 to 53. And finally, A stands for Atma Rama, which is covered in verses from 54 to 72. So this is the acronym of chapter 2. So chapter 2 is a very intense chapter because Krishna starts speaking in this chapter. And it's very deep, very profound, very interesting, and very philosophical. So let us start. A lot of exciting turning points are present in this very chapter. So chapter 2, let us recite. Sanjaya Uvacha Tam Tatha Kripayavishtam Ashrupurnakulekshanam Vishidantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha. One of you, please repeat.
Tam tatha kripayavistam ashrupunakulakshanam vishidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudana.
Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words. So we have seen in the last chapter how Arjuna giving the reasons of, What are the few reasons Arjuna has given for wanting to decline to fight? Number one.
Compassion for family members.
Exactly. First is compassion for family members. Next,
Enjoyment.
enjoyment. Excellent.
Out
Fear
of
of
fear of
sinful
sinful reactions.
Fear of sinful reaction. What was the fourth reason?
Destruction of family traditions.
Destruction of family tradition. And what's the final one? Fifth one?
indecision.
Indecision. Yeah, indecision. So overcome by all these reasons, Arjuna was totally overwhelmed. He was grief stricken. So that's the reason Ashrupurna Kulekshanam. That means his eyes were full of tears. Ashru, his eyes were full of tears and he was grief stricken out of compassion. But then if you see in the purport, Prabhupada calls this compassion material compassion, because this is the compassion that was based on attachment to the body of a person. So I will try to explain what this material compassion means. For example, there is a person who is drowning in a river and you want to save him. So you went all the way, you jumped into the water and you held the person's coat and dragged him to the bank. And later you realized that only the coat is in your hand and the actual person drowned. So was that worth it? So it isn't. So this kind of compassion for just the body of a person is called materialistic compassion, because it does not really solve the problem of the person. The compassion that is shown at the platform of the soul, that is true compassion, that is lasting compassion, and that does real good for the person. Yeah. So that is the material compassion. So, okay. Fine. There's some kind of a power trip that's happening. I hope it will be stabilized now. So that's material compassion. Material compassion is what makes a person grief stricken. I mean, Arjuna was in that mode of being overwhelmed by such compassion, and because of which he has become indecisive. So, and here Krishna is addressed as Madhusudan. Madhusudan means the destroyer of doubts. So Arjuna right now is completely in an indecisive mode. He was doubtful as to what he's supposed to do. He didn't know what to do. What should I do? So Madhusudana means the killer of the demon Madhu. Madhu also represents doubt. So one who can destroy the demon of doubt is Madhusudana, Krishna. So here is Krishna, who is who's sitting right there on the chariot to destroy the demon of doubt and enlighten Arjuna. And hence he was addressed herein as Madhusudan. So yeah, we will go to the next verse. Very important verse. This is the verse in which the first verse where Krishna is directly speaking. 2.2. Shri Bhagavan Kutastva Kashmalamidam Vishame Samupasthitam Anarya Jushtam Asvargyam Akirtikaram Arjuna. Somebody?
कुतत्वाकश्मलं निदं विश्मे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टम् अस्वर्गम् अकीर्तिकरम् अर्जुन.
Yeah, so what does this mean? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They're not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy. So the interesting point is the very first verse that Krishna has started his conversation with Arjuna was a mild chastisement. He said that, he started chastising because Arjuna was his friend. So let us go through this verse in detail. The verse starts Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So Krishna is addressed herein as Shri Bhagavan. So we have earlier discussed what is the definition of Bhagavan as has been given by Parashara Muni. Does somebody remember?
With all the 6 opulences, ma'am.
Yes. Who said that?
Sarita Mataji.
Sarita. Okay, okay.
I'm
So Bhagavan is the possessor, Bhaga. Yeah, Shannam Bhagati Itim Gana. So Bhaga means opulences. The possessor of 6 opulences is called Bhagavan. So what are the 6 opulences? Wealth. Yeah.
saying
Yeah. Yes.
strength,
Strength.
strength,
Yes.
Beauty,
knowledge,
Beauty.
knowledge,
Knowledge.
renunciation,
Renunciation. Yes, these are the 6 opulences. And Lord Krishna, we have seen, is the possessor of all these 6 opulences, which are present in totality and to an infinite extent and simultaneously. So in the material world, we might see a spark of these opulences in people whom we come across. Like there are a lot of film stars by whom we are very much attracted by because of their beauty or because of their style or anything. And why we are so attracted to them? It's because they are reflecting a spark of the source. And who's that source? That source is Krishna. Actually, in the Vibhuti Yoga, the 11th chapter, when we go, Krishna explains how he is the source of all these opulences. It's a very, very interesting chapter again, 11th chapter. So, yeah. So that is the definition of Bhagavan. Also, that Krishna is the Bhagavan is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's some disturbance. Everybody, I hope you have turned off your mics. I request everybody, please turn off your mics. Just see. Yeah. You and anybody else? Yeah. I've unmuted. I've muted them. So, Vadanti tat tattvavidas tad jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. The absolute truth is realized in 3 phases: the Brahman, the Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So let me explain what this is. All of us since childhood, we have we have heard about different conceptions of God. And also we have tried to formulate our own understanding based on our knowledge that we have received either from our grandparents or from outsiders or from some movies. So certain popular understandings, let me tell you. People say that God is present everywhere, right? This is something that we have been hearing. He's everywhere. And he has no form. God has no form. And this is one understanding about God that we have heard. And sometimes we also hear people saying that God is within every person, right? He's within me, he's within you, he's within everybody. This is another understanding about God, right? And some of us speak about God as, yes, God is present and he's present in higher planets, in the kingdom of God, which the Bible calls it the kingdom of God, or the Quran calls it the Jannat, or our Vedas call it the, Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan. So God is residing in his own abode. So which of these 3 is true? Is God present everywhere? Is he present within every person? Or is he present in his own abode? So the answer is all 3 are true. So how is that all three are true? It's the same God who is presenting himself in different degrees of realizations. One classic example and analogy I will tell you to explain this. There is sun, right? There is sunshine. There is sun, the disk, the sun disk. And inside the sun disk is the sun god. So these are the three ways of understanding sun. So can we say this sunshine is different from the sun? It's yes and no. It's coming from the sun. It's not different from the sun. At the same time, it's not sun because it's coming from the sun. So similarly, Brahman is the all-pervading nature of the same absolute truth, God. So that is what is explained by the word that God is present everywhere. His omnipresence, he's omnipresent. That means he's present everywhere. That's the Brahman feature of the Lord. And what's a Paramatma feature? And just like sunshine and then the sun disk is compared to the Paramatma feature of the Lord. Paramatma feature is the Lord is present in the heart of every living entity. And, he's been with us. There is something called Jivatma and Paramatma. They're always together. In fact, he's the best friend who's been coming with us through all lifetimes. He's never left us. He's such a kind friend. That's Paramatma. Every living entity has their own internal Paramatma. You, me, a sparrow, a dog, an elephant, everybody has their own Paramatma in their heart. So that's the Paramatma feature of God. And Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the Supreme Lord himself as a person who is residing in his abode as Lord Narayana in Vaikuntha, as Lord Sri Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. That's the Bhagavan feature of the Supreme Lord. The same Bhagavan Sri Krishna is right now sitting with Arjuna and talking to him. So that is Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. That is how Krishna is. And Krishna himself is the Sri Bhagavan that has been declared by all the Vedas and in different Vedic literatures like the Bhagavatam and other Upanishads. Ete chamsha kalapumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Svayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. So, Ete cha amsha kalah pumsha. This is a very important verse in Bhagavatam. There is an entire analysis and description of the absolute truth, God, and declares that Krishnastu Bhagavan Svayam. Krishna himself is the Bhagavan. So that is Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. That is a definition of Bhagavan. Kutastva Kashmalidam. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, Kutastvam Kashmalamidam, from where from did you get these impurities, O Arjuna? Krishna began his chastisement, sweet chastisement. Where from did you get these impurities? Vishame Samupastitam. In this crisis, we have all assembled here in this hour of crisis. And in this hour of crisis, you're supposed to stand up and act. But then, due to some impurities in your heart, you are taken aback and you're refraining from your duty. And this kind of conduct, O Arjuna, is anarya jushtam, asvargyam, akirtikaram. Anarya jushtam. Anarya means Arya. We hear of this name Arya, right? It's very popular. But what is the meaning of the name Arya? In fact, people say that North Indians are called Aryans, and in fact, Hitler said all the Germans are Aryans. All the, because why they're Aryans? They're Aryans because they're the fair clan and they have these very sharp features and they look very good and they were tall and handsome and very fair. That's why they're Aryans. And because of that whole bodily conception, he created a lot of destruction, as we all know, Adolf Hitler. But what is the technical definition of Aryan? Aryan is somebody who knows the value of life, who is realized about the value of life, who understands the difference between matter and spirit. And that means who has come to the standard of self-realization. That is an Aryan. But right now here, Arjuna is declining to fight based on bodily attachment. And that is why Krishna is calling that as Anarya. Opposite of Arya is Anarya, Anarya Jishtam. Asvargyam, that means this is not going to lead you to higher realms of planetary systems. That means it's not going to elevate you to a higher level of life. Akirtikaram, and this is going to bring you only infamy. Akirtikaram Arjuna. This is how Krishna has begun to chastise Arjuna for his decision of declining to fight. And let's see how it goes ahead. Klaibyam masmagamah partha naitatvayupapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvotishta parantapa.
क्लेब्यं मास्मगम पार्थ न एतत्त्वयि उपद्यते शूद्रं हृदये दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वा उत्तिष्ठ परन्तप.
O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. So here Krishna is addressing Arjuna as Pritha. There is a technical reason why he addressed Arjuna as Pritha. Pritha means you're the son of Partha. Partha means you're the son of Pritha. Pritha means Kunti Devi. So Kunti Devi, she is a Kshatrani. She's coming from the Kshatriya family. And being the son of a Kshatrani, Arjuna is supposed to be a Kshatriya. And for Kshatriya, the worst thing that can ever happen is to decline from fighting when he is invited for a fight. In the 16th chapter, I think we will go ahead to see what are the qualities of each of these varnas. What are the qualities of a Brahmana? What are the qualities of a Kshatriya? Yuddhe chapi apalayanam. A person who does not run away from battle, who never turns his back in a battlefield is a Kshatriya. So, and for a Brahmana to act impiously is the worst thing. And for a Kshatriya to decline to fight when he's invited to fight is the worst thing that can happen. And here Arjuna is declining to fight, and Krishna is trying to boost him up, saying that Pritha, you're Partha, you're the son of Pritha, who's a Kshatrani. So you're supposed to act as a Kshatriya, but you're declining to fight. It doesn't befit you, Arjuna. So he's saying that. So, and give up such petty weakness of heart. Hridaya daurbalyam. Here, what Arjuna did not want to fight because he wanted to be magnanimous by forgiving great elders like Bhishma Pitama and Drona. And, he wants to, in fact, going ahead in the next few verses, he starts telling that, I would rather go and beg than going ahead and fighting here. That's how intimidated he becomes. And Krishna calls it as Hridaya Daurbalyam. That means it's a weakness of your heart because of which you are declining to fight. It is not magnanimity. Remember in the third session, we have had a discussion about the difference between weakness and softness of heart. So weak-hearted Hridaya Daurbalyam means, or the weak-heartedness means, something that will refrain you from performing your duty. That is Hridaya Daurbalyam. So Krishna called this kind of refrainment as Hridaya, weakness of heart. And he's telling Arjuna to give up such petty weakness of heart because it does not befit a Kshatriya to show weakness of heart at the battlefield. And especially in the presence of Krishna, how can Arjuna exhibit such weakness of heart? Krishna himself is the establisher of dharma. He's the father of dharma. Dharma tu sakshat bhavan pranitam. That is, Bhagavan himself is the establisher or the maker of dharma. So Sakshat Krishna himself is present there, but Arjuna is still bewildered. Why is he bewildered? Because in his mind, he is opposed in his interest from that of Krishna's interest. So whenever we are in bewilderment, we should understand that my interest is opposed to the interest of the Supreme Lord. That's when we are subjected to bewilderment. Whenever our interest is in tune with the interest of the Supreme Lord, one is never subjected to bewilderment. So here Arjuna is facing that bewilderment and weakness of heart because his interest was not aligned with the interest of Krishna. Next, fourth one. Arjuna uvacha katham bhishmam aham sankhye dronam cha madhusudana ishubhi pratiyotsami pujarha varisudana.
अर्जुन उवाच कथं भीष्ममहं सङ्ख्ये द्रोणं च मधुसूदन त्रिशूलिः प्रतियोत्सामि पूजार्हा वरिसूदन.
Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship? So here Arjuna is telling that Bhishma and Drona are worthy of my worship. It is true. Elders, especially, one is as per the Dharma Shastras, even if the elders are not right, we are not supposed to give even a verbal battle. We're not supposed to raise our voice in front of them. So that is the etiquette that is expected of a good person. These are all based on the Dharma Shastras. And Arjuna was right as per the moral codes and the Dharma Shastras. So, but what Krishna, the knowledge Krishna is going to give here is beyond the Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Yeah, the four Purusharthas are Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. But the knowledge that Krishna is going to give, the Atma Tattva, it's beyond these four. So next, the meter is slightly different. Try to catch it, or somebody who is tuned to it might repeat. Guru nahatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke hatvatha kamamstu guru nihaiva bunjiya bhogan rudhira pradigdhan.
गुरून् हत्वा हि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्षमपीह लोके हत्वार्थकामांस्तु गुरूनिहैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिक्तान्.
Yeah, Jyotsna, I was about to actually call for you. It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. Rudhira pradigdhan. That's what is tainted with blood means. So, Arjuna is saying that, bhaikshyam, shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyam apiha loke. That means I would rather go around begging and sustain myself rather than fight and even win this war. Even if I would have to win this war, what would be the result? After that, whatever Rajbhog I'm going to enjoy, even in the most palatial houses, it would be that food is going to be tainted with blood. This is because Arjuna was very sensitive. Actually, the very name Arjuna comes from that Rujita. Rujita means the tenderness of heart. So Arjuna had this extreme tenderness of heart and a very sensitive heart to the pain of others. So he was telling that even if I were to win this war, going ahead, the kind of food that even if I take food, I will have to remember that this food is tainted with the blood of my own dear ones. Rudhira pradigdhan. And instead of this, I would rather go around begging. So, Shreyo Bhoktum Bhaiksham Api Halok. In fact, but Srila Prabhupada actually in the next verse, he writes that this attitude of Arjuna, in fact, reflects his detachment. That is, he's saying, I would rather become a beggar and go and beg in the streets than enjoy a kingdom after having killed my own kinsmen, my own people. This is also a sign. This is a sign of detachment. On this platform, if you see Duryodhana, he is willing to kill anybody and do the most atrocious demoniac activities possible just to ensure that he ascends the throne. What not he did, what kind of nonsensical things he did. So in fact, actually, that is why Krishna was so keen on Yudhishthir becoming the king. Because if you see in the past, we have seen Arjuna, he was telling what will happen to the women of this whole world. If the elders are lost, the women can be neglected, and in fact, they will not be protected anymore. But Krishna wanted the fight, because the war to happen, because even if all the men were killed and women would become protectionless, still if Yudhishthir were to rule, he will protect all the women. On the other hand, if Duryodhana were to remain the king, what would be the condition of the women? Sakshat, Draupadi herself, who was the empress, she herself was distrobed in the assembly hall. It was called, assembly hall is called the Sat Sabha, but ever since then it is called Asat Sabha. So what if Draupadi was disrobed in the public? What about the remaining women? What kind of protection would they receive if Duryodhana were to continue to be the king? On the other hand, Krishna was sure if Yudhishthir were to become the king, even if women were left protectionless from the family side, they would be protected, because the rule is by Yudhishthir Maharaj, who is Dharmaraj himself. So it's of course Krishna's decision is always, it's beyond any illusion or doubt, because it's God himself. On the other hand, trying to save the lives of people like Bhishma and Drona, though they were superiors, still they have they were on the side of adharma. They were fighting on the side of adharma. So that's the vision with which Arjuna was supposed to see. Text 6. न चैतद्विद्म कतरन्नो गरीयो यद्वा जयेम यदीवानुजाययु यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्तेव स्थिता प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः. Yes, one of you, please.
न चैतद्विद्मः कतरं न गरीयो यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्ते स्थिता प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्रः.
Dhartarashtra. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. So this is further expressing of Arjuna's indecision over the fight. Let's go on to text 7. Text 7 is the turning point, and whoever wishes to actually learn some verses of Bhagavad Gita, the 7th verse is something you should all learn by heart. Karpanya doshopahat svabhavah pritchami tvam dharma sammudha yashreyasyan nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham sadhimam tvam prapannam. Yes.
कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेतः यच्छ्रेयस्या निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधिमां त्वां प्रपन्नम्.
Now I'm confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So this is the very turning point, because till now Arjuna has been friend of Krishna. You know, this battlefield is fought when Arjuna and Krishna are over 100 years. But still Krishna was looking as young as a 16-year-old boy, because Krishna is Nava Yauvanamscha. He's never subject to any old age. So long they have been friends, and all of a sudden Arjuna is turning to Krishna and telling that, accept me as your disciple and you become my guru. So whenever we are in crisis, let's start with what is the need for guru in our life. So whenever we want to learn something, let's say any subject matter, mathematics, communication, or some skill, or in your BTech you have so many different subjects. So behind me you see a lot of books, right? They're all calculus and pre-calculus, etc. So to learn all these subjects, we need somebody called a teacher, without which, just by opening the books, we cannot study, we cannot learn. So for small things, like you need a coach, like even if you're everybody can run, right? But if you want to be in the Olympics or play that, run in a very professional way, you need a coach. So a game like tennis or badminton or squash, whatever you want to play, you need a coach. You might have an innate ability, but a coach or a teacher is the one who actually brings out and gives you the direction. So similarly, when it comes to spiritual subject matters, somehow people tend to think that I can learn on my own. We don't need a guru. So there are two extremes of understandings about guru, especially in the Indian context. One extreme is people think spiritual knowledge, I do not need a guru because I can meditate and realize it on my own. And the funniest part is people who say this actually have so many disciples. So why do these disciples need a guru when the guru is saying that you don't need a guru? So you find actually many such funny institutions like that in our India. So one extreme is to think that I don't need a guru at all. And the other extreme is blind following. Anybody who, who dresses like a guru, or who gives some bhashan, or who tells few good words, or gives a pep talk, or makes you feel good, or who waxes eloquently. They say, somebody can wax eloquent. You call him a guru or her a guru. So these are two extremes. One is to absolutely reject the very position of guru, saying it's not necessary, or to get into blind following. So these two things are extreme approaches to the understanding of the relevance and pertinence of guru in one's life. But then who is actually a guru? A guru is supposed to be the one who actually can deliver a person from nishanes and take you from nishanes to knowledge. And such a guru is very, very important in one's life. Just like Arjuna, he was in the midst of such perplexities that he could not solve with his own effort, with any amount of his knowledge, erudition, or his knowledge of Dharma Shastras. He could not resolve the perplexity he was facing. Yeah, but one thing that he did is he surrendered to Krishna. He said, Karpanya doshopahata svabhava. Hata svabhava. What is his svabhava? His svabhava is that of a kshatriya. Kshatriya means he has to go and fight. But that nature became curbed. He's unable to act as per his nature because of the situations. And one in any situation cannot act against one's svabhava. For example, I will give you three instances. There is a story of Dhruva Maharaj, which I'm sure most of you know. So Dhruva Maharaj was a small boy. He was a 5-year-old boy who wanted to sit and play on the lap of his father. But his stepmother Suruchi came and pushed him away and said that if you have to sit on the lap of your father and play, then you have to take birth from my womb. And then he, in great rage, he was so hurt, he was so brokenhearted, he was really pained. So he approached his mother, Suniti, and he asked, "Mommy, this is what happened to me. What should I do? And I need to take revenge for this." And his mother, Suniti, she said, "You go to the forest and find Lord Vishnu. Only he can solve your problem." So he sets forth and he walks into the jungle boldly, and in search of God, because he wants to go and do tapasya and find out where is Lord Vishnu. And his desire was so intense that Narada Muni comes. Narada Muni is the transcendental spaceman. He's a spiritual master of the universe. So this is what happens actually whenever a person has intense desire to know about God. Krishna himself sends a suitable spiritual master, a guru for him. So the fact all of you are coming here to attend the course of Bhagavad Gita, you're all not ordinary souls. There is some inspiration that is there from within that has prompted you to take up this course to understand what actually is the message of Gita. So similarly, Dhruva went and he met Narada, and as he was going by, Narada Muni comes and says, "My dear small boy, where are you going?" He says, "Now I want to find God. I want to meet him face to face. I want to talk to him. So I'm going to do tapasya." Then said, "Why? What happened?" And then Dhruva Maharaj narrates, "This is what happened. I've been insulted by my stepmother." And Narada Muni says, "You're a small boy. You have to forgive. Don't take it seriously. Don't take it to heart. Go back. They will be waiting for you." But then Dhruva says, "My dear Narada Muni, what you're saying might be good for a Brahmana boy to forgive and all that. But this does not sink into me, because in my blood there is, in my veins is running Kshatriya blood. That means I have to avenge for what I have been subjected to. I will not go back. Either you suggest me what I'm supposed to do, or just go out of my way. I will go searching for my Lord." So this is the svabhava of a person. Dhruva was a Kshatriya, and what happened later is the story of Bhagavatam. It's a very sweet story. I'll tell some other time. But here is, and actually Narada Muni was very pleased with Dhruva Maharaj because he was very honest. He did not say that, okay, you're saying so, let me try, or he was not duplicitous. He was very straightforward and he was very honest. He said that, I'm a Kshatriya, I cannot forgive, I have to avenge for what has happened to me. And he spoke according to his nature. And Narada Muni, being pleased, he actually instructs him as to how he can attain that vision of the Lord, tells him the process. So this is the nature of Kshatriya, the svabhava of a Kshatriya. And what is the svabhava of a Brahmana? I'll tell you another short story. So once there was this Brahmana who was doing his sandhya in a river. His offer, in sandhya means during the sunset and sunrise, they take the water and again offer the water back into the river. So when he was doing that, there was a scorpion that was going, and it was helplessly getting drained in that water, unable to swim. So this Brahmana, he felt so compassionate for the scorpion, so that he took that scorpion and he wanted to put it on the bank. So, but the scorpion, not knowing the intentions of the Brahmana, when it started stinging the Brahmana on his hand, and as it stung, it fell down again in the water. So the Brahmana, again, he felt compassion for this scorpion, and again he took it, wanting to put it in the bank. But again the scorpion stung. So, again he took it back to place it back on the bank. So there was a person who was watching this all the while. So after the Brahmana came back, he asked him, "So my dear sir, I was amazed to see how that scorpion was stinging you so badly, but again and again you were trying to help. And you're so badly injured." So the Brahmana said, "It is the nature of the scorpion to bite, and it is my nature to be compassionate, and both of us are acting according to our natures." So nature or swabhava of a person is something that is very difficult to give up. It's impossible to give up. It becomes a part of oneself. We also see now, let's say, if a person has predominantly business nature, wherever he goes, he or she tries to find business. You can actually see some people around us if you just keep our eyes open. Even if you send that person to forest, he will go around the forest and sees, how to make business of some forest products. Let's make it organic and sell it at this price. This is the MRP. This is how much profit I will get, profit, loss, calculations. Always in that mode. That's business mentality. That's mixture of actually rajas, mode of passion and ignorance, rajas and tamas. So in this way, every person has a predominant nature and they act as per their nature by default. So in that way, Arjuna's default nature is he's a Kshatriya, but the situation demanded in that such a way that he's not able to act according to his nature. And so he was bewildered because of that. Prichami tvam dharma sammuda. That's how he got bewildered about his situation and he did not know what is his duty. And now he says, Yash shreyasyam nishchitam bruhitan me. What is the real shreyas? So there are two words. There is shreyas and preyas. What is the difference between shreyas and preyas? Shreyas means the long-term benefit. Oftentimes our elders say, right? For your shreyas, I'm talking this way. Preyas means immediate gain, immediate pleasure. But a person who is intelligent or a person who is a true well-wisher will advise you based on what is good for you in the long run. That is shreyas. So Arjuna was unable to decide what is real shreyas for himself. Yash shreyasya nishchitam bruhitan me. That's why for certain, Krishna, please tell me for sure. Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. Shishyasteham. I am your shishya now. Shishya actually comes from the root word shash. Shishya means disciple, right? Disciple. Okay. Disciple means a person who is willing to be disciplined by his guru. That's the qualification of a disciple. Shishya means it's coming from the root word shast, which means governance. Shastra, Shastra, Shishya. They're all coming from the same root word of Sanskrit. That means that one who is willing to be governed by a higher authority. So he has accepted Krishna as the guru and he has submitted himself as Shishya. Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. Prapannam means I submit myself to you. I surrender myself to you. This is exactly the attitude that is required to benefit from the knowledge, the transcendental knowledge that has been given. If not, we can go on hearing for ages, but actually for that knowledge to actually become realized and to fructify into a practical application into our own lives. This is the mood that is required, the mood of surrender. So, and that surrender should be towards Krishna, here as Arjuna has surrendered to Krishna, or the representative of Krishna who's coming in parampara. So next question is, so how do we identify a genuine guru? I mean, before that, actually, why should we approach a guru? As today, our topic is Tad Vijnanartham Sagurum Evabhigachet Samit Pani Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. Tad Vijnanartham. If you want Vijnana, there is something called Jnana and Vijnana. What is the difference between Jnana and Vijnana? Anybody?
Jnana, Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Jnana is knowledge, Mataji. Vijnana is realized knowledge.
Yeah. So Jnana is more of a theoretical knowledge and Vijnana is that which is realized. So that Vijnana, and if you want that to attain to that Vijnana, realized knowledge, Sa Gurum Eva Bhigachat. That is Mundaka Upanishad. There is a Mundaka Upanishad which is saying, if you want Vijnana, approach a bona fide spiritual master. Samit Panik Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. And what is the qualification of that spiritual master? Shrotriyam and Brahmanishtam. Shrotriyam means he himself or she herself, or the guru himself is Shrotriyam, has heard from proper source, and they are themselves well versed in the conclusions of Vedas. And Brahmanishtam, very important. Brahmanishtam means they are fixed in the absolute truth. Sarita ji, can you please mute yourself? Yeah. So these are the two qualifications: Samitpani, Shrotriyam, Brahmanishtam. These are the two qualifications of a bona fide guru, a spiritual master. And how do we, practically identify such a guru in our current day world? Because there is so many gurus around, and so many Bhagavad Gitas also available. So one of the way of identifying to such a bona fide guru is that guru should be coming in a bona fide parampara system. I have spoken about this in the DYS session. Parampara means there are 4 bona fide paramparas or sampradayas, that we call as sampradaya. There is Shri Sampradaya, there is Madhva Sampradaya, there is Rudra Sampradaya, and Kumara Sampradaya. Shri Sampradaya is coming from goddess Lakshmi. Madhva Sampradaya is coming from Lord Brahma. Kumara Sampradaya is coming from the Brahma Kumaras. And Rudra Sampradaya is coming from Lord Shiva. So Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum, the supreme spiritual master Lord Krishna, has given knowledge through these 4 branches: Lakshmi Devi of Lord Shiva, of the 4 Kumaras, and Brahmaji. So the book that we are reading right now, Bhagavad Gita as it is written by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He's coming in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, coming from Lord Brahma himself. So this is the way to identify a bona fide guru. And to such guru, one should approach and Samitpani, that means in a very humble way, one should approach such a guru. In fact, in 4th chapter, Krishna himself tells about how to approach and gain knowledge from a guru. Yeah. And we will do that later on. Okay, so we'll go ahead. Text 8. Nahi prapashyami mamapanudyad yachokamuchoshanamindriyanam avapya bhuma vasapnam riddham rajyam suranam apichadipatyam.
Nahi prapashyami mama panudhyat yachokam uchoshanam indriyanam avapyam bhumo asaptanam riddhim rajyam suranam apicha adhipatyam.
I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. So this is how we can see that still Arjuna was unable to drive away his grief based on his own strength of academic knowledge, his own strength of knowing so much about the Dharma Shastras, and with his own intelligence, he was unable to drive away the bewilderment and grief he was subjected to, and he needs a higher guidance. So this is very important. So whenever we are in genuine confusion or crisis, one should actually approach a guru for having the problem solved. Like, for example, today the world is in such crisis. Yeah, the crisis of COVID. Yeah. So there are different ways of responding to this crisis. There is a response in the mode of ignorance, passion, goodness, and there is transcendental response. I will tell you what these are. There is the response in the mode of ignorance. So there are some people in the country, let me not name the country, who said, oh, this is happening because of the bats, but it does not mean that we are going to stop eating bats. We will continue to eat bats, and these people are still eating bats. So this is called response in the mode of ignorance. They want to do just the opposite. And there is something called response in the mode of passion. So what is a response in the mode of passion? Passion means basically they're addicted to enjoyment. There is no control of senses. So once, during the first phase of COVID, first wave, there was initial declaration of importance of maintaining social distance and etc., and not to get into public gatherings. But then there were this group of people, youngsters, who said, no, we don't care about this. And we would continue to party. So, they hung out on a very massive party. And within 2 weeks, everybody who attended party was tested positive and they had to suffer so much. So basically, this is a response in the mode of passion. That is like, we continue to enjoy, satisfying our senses. It's the most important need for me. The uncontrolled senses, basically that is mode of passion. Then there is something called response in the mode of goodness. So response in the mode of goodness is good, but not good enough. So what is this good? Good means that is you try to understand actually what is this disease all about. You approach the authority in the subject matters, hear from the doctors, hear from the scientists who have actually done some research, genuine research on this, collect some data and be careful, avoid unnecessary things and follow these instructions to protect yourself and people around you. This is a response in the mode of goodness. So there is something beyond these three, coping and responding in the transcendental mode, beyond the three modes. That is to actually understand where from this crisis has come, how to handle this crisis, and how to transcend the crisis. There is something called coping and there is something called transcending. So this transcending can happen only when you approach a bona fide spiritual master. So that is why it is said the spiritual solutions are permanent solutions. They're not hodgepodge, temporary. They're not temporary stopgap solutions. They're permanent solutions. So next one, 9th one. Sanjaya uvacha eva muktva hrishikesham gudakesha parantapaha na yotsya iti govindam uktva tushnim babuvaha. Yes.
एवम् उक्त्वा ऋषिकेशं गुडाकेशं परन्तपा नायोत्स्य इति गोविन्दम् उक्त्वा तुष्णं बभूवः.
So Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. So tell me, who is rejoicing this word? When Sanjaya told this to Dhritarashtra? Who felt happy hearing this, that Arjuna fell silent, saying that I don't want to fight?
Dhritarashtra.
Dhritarashtra. He was very happy. Okay, now, Arjuna now fell silent, saying he does not want to fight. But Sanjaya said he addressed Arjuna as Parantapa. Parantapa means he's a chastiser of enemy. So indirectly, he's hinting that if Arjuna comes into form, nobody can stand in front of him. Arjuna was such a warrior. My God, if you just read the Mahabharata, it's amazing the kind of Yodha he was. Okay, the last verse of the day. Tam uvacha hrishikeshaha prahasan iva bharata senayorubhayor madhye vishidantam idam vachaha.
तमुवाच ऋषिकेश प्रहसन् इव भारत सेनयो उभयो मध्ये विषीदन्तम् इदं वच.
Yes, O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. So Krishna smiled. So Krishna is also called Mridu Manda Suhasya Subhashya Yutam. It is Mridu, gentle, Manda Suhasya. That is, he's very famous for his gentle, sweet smile. Subhashya, that means whatever he speaks is also very sweet. So, but Krishna's smile here is different. It's a different setting altogether. So Krishna is smiling for various reasons. One reason was that, Krishna, the Arjuna, who was his friend, is now becoming his disciple. It's a change of relationship on a temporary basis, though. And it is not easy to take the position of a guru. The position of the guru is a great responsibility, because it is said that when a person takes up the position or responsibility of a guru, he has a responsibility to deliver this person, the disciple, from the ocean of birth and death. It's a very serious responsibility. So here Krishna smiled because now Arjuna, with all his intelligence, he failed to come to a conclusion as to what to do. So now Krishna is smiling because, yeah, okay, Arjuna, so you have tried a lot. Now that you have understood that you couldn't do it on your own, now you have come to me and I'm happy about it. So he has that smile. And he has smile because he, because he was originally his friend and now he's taking the position of a guru. But the smile slowly became, went into the mood of gravity. He's become very grave now because he's now taking the position of a guru.
No, Mataji, your voice is not audible.
My voice is not audible for everybody?
Audible.
It's audible.
It's audible.
Audible. Okay. So only to one person probably it is not audible. Yeah, but I'm concluding anyways. So Krishna has now assumed the position of guru. And what he speaks, we're going to see from the next verse onwards, which will continue next week. So thank you all very much. Any doubts, any questions, any queries, any comments? I will just take one or two. It's already 7:15.
Mataji, Guru should be in, means we should see him, or we should, in person we should have, or even in our imagination can we have Guru?
Yes, good question, Bhargavi. See, there are two types of guru. There is Diksha Guru and there is Siksha Guru. Okay. Diksha Guru is a person who initiates a person into the spiritual life. Yeah, who gives the person the mantra Diksha, and initiates the person, and who is actually the person who's responsible to take the person back to Godhead. In fact, that position and responsibility is so grave that if the disciple falls down and takes another birth, the guru, just to reclaim this person, has to take birth again for that person so that he is taken back to Godhead. That's the gravity of the responsibility of a Diksha Guru. So one who gives Diksha and one who takes a person back to Godhead. That's a Diksha Guru. There is somebody called a Siksha Guru. Siksha Guru is a person who instructs, who guides, and who helps a person practice spiritual life in their own personal setting. So the Siksha Guru is more like a friend, a philosopher, and a guide. So that's and a person can have one Diksha Guru and many Siksha Gurus. Okay, that you will get to know later. But your question saying that, can you imagine a guru? How can an imaginary guru means you're also doing imaginary spiritual practices. It's not possible. A guru should be present live to guide you. If you have a doubt, whom will you contact?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Bhargavi?
I understood, Mataji.
Yeah, so it is very important to have a live guru. But the most important is to understand who is a genuine guru and to approach that guru.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So our business is simply to, take interest in spiritual life and develop the qualifications and qualities of a genuine disciple, and later remaining Krishna orchestrates. Yes. Any other question? That's all. Soumya has come today.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Soumya. I didn't hear from you today.
Hi, ma'am.
Okay.
Mataji, I was reciting shlokas.
Yes,
You
of
didn't hear?
course. Of course, I know. I know when you recite. The sweet voice. Okay, so okay, that's all for today. If you have any more questions, you can please post it in the Gita Magic group. And there are a lot of new people whom I see today. I have received the list of new students recently, and I will get back to you. We will probably meet on a Zoom call, and probably the first chapter, I will see how I can compensate for it, whatever you have missed. And the MCQs for today's session, I will post it in your respective groups. Thank you all very much. Have a good day. Have a great week. We'll meet next week about I for identity. We're going to discuss about the most important Atma Tattva next session. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Dandavat pranam Mataji. Thank you.
Dandavat. Thank you all so much.
Mataji.
Thank you. Jai. Jai.
Radhe Radhe.
Mataji.